Hey guys, we're live, and today is November 11th, 2016. Um, Veterans Day, as it's called here in the United States, but I've always preferred the older name, Armistice Day, which recognizes the end of the First World War, the war to end all wars, back on this day the Accords were signed on this day in 1818, and it became a holiday in 1918, so nearly 100 years ago, and became a holiday in 1922. Again, I've always preferred the original name of it because what Armistice Day says is we are laying down our arms, we are honoring our dead, and we are promising future generations that, we're not going to let it happen again, and we're not going to forget it. So backing me up on this name choice would be Kurt Vonnegut, who in his 1973 novel Breakfast of Champions wrote these lines. So this book is a sidewalk strewn with junk, trash which I throw over my shoulders as I travel back in time to November 11th, 1922. I will come to a time in my backwards trip when November 11th, accidentally my birthday, was a sacred day called Armistice Day. When I was a boy and when Dwayne Hoover was a boy, all the people of all the nations which had fought in the First World War were silent during the 11th minute of the 11th hour of Armistice Day, which was the 11th day of the 11th month. It was during that minute in 1918 that millions upon millions of human beings stopped butchering one another. I've talked to old men who were on battlefields during that minute. They have told me, in one way or another, that the sudden silence was the voice of God. So we still have among us some men who can remember when God spoke clearly to mankind. Armistice Day has become Veterans Day. Armistice Day was sacred. Veterans Day is not. So I will throw Veterans Day over my shoulder. Armistice Day I will keep. I don't want to throw away any sacred things. What else is sacred? Oh, Romeo and Juliet, for instance. And all music is. So that was Kurt Vonnegut from Breakfast of Champions. And to mark the day, I've got 3 poems picked out for you. Dulce et Decorum Est by Wilfred Owen, The Death of the Ball Turret Gunner by Randall Jarrell, and Aftermath by Siegfried Sassoon. So without further ado, Dulce et Decorum Est. Bent double, like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and toward our distant rest we began to trudge. Men marched asleep. Many had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshod. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of gas shells dropping softly behind. Gas! Gas! Quick, boys! An ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time, but someone still was yelling out and stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime, dim through the misty panes and thick green light as under a green sea. I saw him drowning. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. If in some smothering dreams you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in and watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face, like a devil's, sick of sin, if you could hear at every jolt the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues. My friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children, ardent for some desperate glory, the old lie. Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. And for those of you that don't understand Latin, that comes from Horace at the end there. And what it means is, it is sweet and fitting to die for one's country. The old lie. So speaking of the old lie, my next poem for you is by Randall Jarrell, and this is called The Death of the Ball Turret Gunner. Yeah, I know, we're skipping ahead to World War II, but this is a short one of my favorite poems. The Death of the Ball Turret Gunner. From my mother's sleep I fell into the state, and I hunched in its belly till my wet fur froze 6 miles from earth, loosed from its dream of life. I woke to black flak and the nightmare fighters. When I died, they washed me out of the turret with a hose. Okay. And the last one I have for you, back to World War I, is by Siegfried Sassoon, and this is called Aftermath. Have you forgotten yet? For the world's events have rumbled on since those gagged days, like traffic checked while at the crossing of city ways. And the haunted gap in your mind is filled with thoughts that flow like clouds in the lit heaven of life. And you're a man reprieved to go, taking your peaceful share of time with joy to spare. But the past is just the same, and war is a bloody game. Have you forgotten yet? Look down and swear by the slain of the war that you will never forget. Do you remember the dark months you held the sector at Mametz? The nights you watched and wired and dug and piled sandbags on parapets? Do you remember the rats and the stench of corpses rotting in front of the front-line trench, and dawn coming, dirty, white, and chill with a hopeless rain? Do you ever stop and ask, is it all going to happen again? And do you remember that hour of din before the attack, and the anger, the blind compassion that seized and shook you then as you peered at the doomed and haggard faces of your men? Do you remember the stretcher cases lurching back with dying eyes and lolling heads, those ashen gray masks of the lads who once were keen and kind and gay? Have you forgotten yet? Look up and swear by the green of spring that you'll never forget. Thank you for tuning in. It's 7 minutes after 11 on November 11th, 2016. 8 minutes after 11 now. In 3 minutes, I'm going to invite you to join me in a moment of silence, remembering those who fell in the First World War and what they fought for and what they died for. And wow, swear by the green of spring you'll never forget. Thanks for tuning in.